So as the drivers get ready, so too do we here on RaceSpotTV for the first of two races in 60 plus racing adventures, the championship for drivers over the age of 60. The team's championship and also Super 70s for drivers over the age of 70. It's an awesome championship, an awesome series, an awesome community that just shows that the passion for racing is for everyone. So the passion for sim racing is for all ages as well, including these drivers here over the age of 60. Qualifying has just about wrapped up, and it's David Haynes here with Will Chadwick. Will, what an awesome circuit the Nürburgring Nordschleife is. So much history, but also brutally challenging as well.
Yeah, and I can't believe that we're going racing here tonight because it's such a challenging circuit for the drivers. You know, there is no greater challenge than the Nordschleife in racing for any of our competitors here tonight, and I cannot wait to see them take it on.
So I'll tell you that it's Russ Addy who not just leads the championship points at this stage of the 12-week championship, but he also led qualifying, and he will start on the front row of the grid alongside previous multiple-time champion Ragnar Wisloff. So there is an incredible amount of talent and pace on the front row of the grid with champions side by side. Reigning Super 70s champion John Morgan qualifies third. He has a real habit of just banking those kind of results and taking third places, podiums, and qualifying strongly as well. And he looks like he shares that row 2 for the 2-wide rolling start with Donald Fitterer. The row behind them is Ulf Olsen and Gerhardus Jorrison. Barry Hills, Bill Smitham behind that, the next row. And then Greg Gilman, Marcellus Breuning, Peter Holstrom and Bruce Poole, Richard Coulomb, Randy Shoemake, JC Hay and Bob Kern, 15th to 16th. You can see them all very eager to get onto the dummy grid here behind the Porsche safety car. Up to 16th there, yeah, so Jerry Kerr, John Hill, Joel Martin, Eugene Clark, Franz Josef Sturm and Paul Stump, 21st and 22nd. Stump was right up in the points tally, but I don't think he's successfully logged a qualifying lap. It is just one flying lap of one of the most treacherous racing circuits that there is, an incredible amount of jeopardy to that with regards to either starting up front or maybe no qualifying time and starting deeper in the field like Paul Stump. Oyvind Anderson and Eric Block behind that, Mike Grandy, Robert Love, Douglas Beasley, Pierre Zione and Gene Moore is our 29 car field. And Will, don't they look great in this morning sun?
Absolutely, they all look amazing. One qualifying lap to get your lap in here at the Nordschleife is so challenging. Yes, some people would say that the Nordschleife is a track that's easier to not really make a mistake on the track. So I don't know indeed what lap time are we doing. I'm just trying to get into the session, but
6:29 was our pole lap.
6 minutes and 29 seconds. I think it's fantastic to see who we've got on pole, and not been for a race, to be honest.
You're not going to have to wait too long as they're on the truncated formation lap, thank goodness, otherwise it would be the longest formation lap on iRacing. That honour actually belongs to VIR Grand West, where there is no option for a short formation lap and you have to do the full 4 miles behind the pace car. Not so today here as they start at the tourist pits exit, just work their way through. That's Tiergarten. And then the final corner where pole man Russ Addy will control them in the 111. Ragnar Wisloff in black and red on his outside. The green flag drops, and for a 5-lap race 1, we are underway. The tyres are cold as they make their way through the challenging opening section of the Nordschleife down towards the Hutzenbach section. It is narrow, the Armco is close, and the drivers are well aware of that as they drop into single file quite rapidly. Gerhardus Jorrison first driver in the field to make a move, has gone from 6th to 5th in that start. Otherwise, moderately just dropping into single file from their 2-wide rolling start, looking to survive the first treacherous part of this circuit to race on 5 laps if they can. But the pace for those front row starters, Russ Addy and Ragnar Wisloff, already in effect as they've broken a little bit of the draft to John Morgan in 3rd. This is a car that in these fast sections of the opening part of the lap here really does slipstream pretty strongly, and they come over the crest at Flugplatz. Already danger for what might have been Gerhardus Jorgensen there in blue. Or was it Ulf Olsen? I'm starting to think now it would have been in front of Bill Smitham. So yeah, potentially Ulf Olsen or Barry Hills, but a lot of treachery at that part of the circuit. Again, fast over the crest, heading towards Arenberg. Indeed, of course, so difficult to make overtaking manoeuvres most of the way around this track. You end up thinking, you know, oh, I'm only 10 kilometers away from the Dronningerhöhe, which is one of the longest straights in circuit racing, and you really can hook into the slipstream there and make passes from a long way back in a car like this. Depending on how the gearing is though, you can often hit the rev limiter in 6th at some of the really fast long straights, long full throttle blasts in this car. Work their way then towards, looks like, yep, heading towards miss hit miss here, where you've got a triple apex right-hander, and the name would suggest that you only take the middle apex. It really depends on the kind of car that you're racing, and for the number 27, dropping back there, very cautious on the brakes. You drop downhill here drastically, locking up the inside tyres very, very easily if you're not careful. And you do need to be careful, because this is part of the Road to Indy ladder of cars. It's designed for training younger drivers. It does not have traction control or ABS, as is typical of most open wheels.
Yeah, and that makes this so much harder.
Exactly. This is Ulf Olsen in green and yellow, under pressure from Barry Hills in orange and white behind. Then Bill Smitham in blue, I think, is the driver we saw really put our hearts in our mouths at Flugplatz on this opening lap. And then Greg Gilman and Marcellus Bruining, the drivers behind. Olsen seems to have done pretty well through that section of circuit. Anywhere you get the long, full throttle parts, like up that hill towards Bravery Corner, like the Dronningerhöhe, and from Flugplatz towards Arenberg, the drivers behind, from even about a second behind, will really, really close up. And so it's this back half of the lap from Hohe Acht, which they're just approaching, the highest point on the circuit. You sort of really, really snake around through Wipperman and all of the next part of the lap here. There's no long full throttle stretch from here until they get to the Stefan Bellerfesses and Schwalbenschwanz.
And this section is all about placing the car. If you get offline in one corner, the next one suffers. You can see the drivers, there's a lot of blind apexes, corners where you're turning earlier than you think, and it's really important to just get into the groove, try and point the car where you need it to go, and try your best. As you can see, you've still got drivers running really, really close, and I think there was some crap yet, which, to be honest, is amazing, because every race I feel like I've ever covered at the Nordschleife has been crashing on, and these drivers have proven that you don't need that.
Oh, there's still many kilometres of this opening lap to go. Why would you put that on these lovely gentlemen?
Because you've done such a good job.
This is the race leader, Russ Addy, a little reminiscent of Lightning McQueen, maybe even, although it is a classic 90s, 2000s Chip Ganassi kart kind of throwback deal. It's got Ragnar Wisloff, John Morgan and Donald Fitterer still right behind him as they go through the mini carousel. And then up to the top of the hill here, you blind on the entry, but you really, really want to maximise the exit, especially if you're in a situation like Russ Addy. Might not be enough. Ragnar Wisloff, 6/10 behind, will be right on his tail by the time they get to the end of this straight. Wolf Olsen will be directing his hate mail towards Will Chadwick as he's come unstuck at Galgenpop and drilled the Armco. Luckily, all of those that were following so closely in behind him, like we saw, managed to avoid hitting his sideways car. But this is the slipstream. This is the closing for the lead. Russ Addy under pressure from Ragnar Wisloff, who swoops around the outside into the race lead. John Morgan in third, watching on. And there are a lot of other passes happening behind this group as well. If you are going to be patient on the opening lap, it's because you're waiting for that opportunity on the Dottinger Horn.
Yeah, and as you saw there, actually I was really impressed with Russ Addy's exit going on to the Dottinger. The gap was a consistent 4, 5, 6 tenths, but actually through that final corner, Russ was able to open it up to 7 tenths, but wasn't quite able to hold on. But if they just stick together through the next 6 kilometres, they're going to have a chance in, not 6 kilometres, but in 6 minutes, I should say. They'll get another chance, but there's plenty of other chances for everybody. Nordschleife, and just worry in it. Times that have that chance to get past, but looking more under threat than John Morgan at the minute, and backing like
iRacing's stat for this layout calls it 22.8 kilometres long with 154 turns. Now, there are some circuits in Saudi Arabia that seem to exaggerate how many turns they actually have. I think I could count at least 100 real ones around this layout, I think. Because that's definitely one there at Schwedenkreuz. This is definitely one here at Arenberg. You see that fast part of the track they've just been on means that your pole man stays in touch with Ragnar Wisloff, and John Morgan stays in touch behind as well. It looks to be a leading trio at the moment as they're on lap 2 of 5 for the first of 2 races.
Well, you certainly wouldn't call any of the Nordschleife's turns easy, or maybe 1 or 2, but I feel like the turn at the Nordschleife is like 1.5 times harder than any other circuit, it feels like. You know, it was so... I remember the first year I did this track on iRacing, you know, it's a beautiful scan. And the first time I ever did this, I can remember in fact, actually, I did the 24 hours of everything, and I crashed like 3 times within 7 laps, and I ruined my teammates' races. One of those teammates was Luke Bennett, whose birthday is today, so happy birthday to him on the broadcast. But yeah, such a challenging track, and the first time I came here, I was terrible.
A circuit that absolutely takes a long time to learn, because there is 22 kilometres of it, and it is incredibly unforgiving in places with blind corners, bumps, crests. You can see the curbs around most of the track are ones you absolutely don't want to hit in a car like this. You'll bottom out, you'll have no grip, you'll become a bit of a skier, a bit of a snowboarder. And Donald Fitterer, great work that he's done to make it a leading 4 at the moment. He's clearly pressing on with a little more risk.
Yeah, so I think that I'm pretty impressed with how these drivers have been doing. And it's a very fast car from Donald Fitterer. What's happened there? Because that looked like a very, very easy pass for your 3rd position there, but Donald Fitterer is on a mission and maybe even going to close up to leaders, but that gap's just over the toe range, or kind of what we'd suggest is where you get a rather strong effect from slipstream in our racing. But there's still time left in this straight, so I'm sure they can close it up.
Well, it really does come down to how aggressively you want to drive through this part of the lap. You really can close up a lot of time here, and indeed, Federer's done it almost immediately to get in behind Russ Addy and Ragnar Wisloff.
It just seems like Federer's on an absolute mission. I mean, started the lap 2 seconds behind anyone in this group, 3.1 seconds behind the leader. We're now talking about 7 tenths of a second as we enter the last kind of third of the lap. I kind of look at it. I don't know if it's quite correct in the whole kilometres thing, but it feels like that type of section to me. And it certainly looks to me at the minute like it's kind of when, not if, Federer gets past and maybe challenges the lead.
In my mind, the first half of the lap is to the carousel, and the second half of the lap is kind of from the carousel back. And even if that's not exact distances or times, psychologically it just feels like that to me. You're kind of heading away from the pits till you get to the carousel, and you make that kind of loop back before it, which I used to know, name escapes me, and then the whole arc you also sort of turn back towards the start-finish line.
Yeah, it definitely feels like that. When you kind of reach that carousel, you feel like, all right, we're getting towards the end. I think a lot of people, when they start learning the Nordschleife, which may have been the case for some of our competitors here tonight, that when you reach those carousels, it always feels like a large checkpoint in the track. And of course, the final one here, a lot shallower, a lot less menacing, but certainly still a challenge. Is what we've just rounded as we are approaching the bottom of the road.
So 4 cars in our leading group here with Ragnar Wisloff, Russ Addy, Donald Federer and John Morgan. They've got more than 10 seconds back to the next group of drivers, so as they're about to complete lap 2 of 5, it really does look like it's going to be one of this 4 who will take away the sweeties from race number 1. Slipstream dramatically in effect as Addy and Federer hunt down Ragnar Wisloff. Wisloff has to look in his mirrors and decide who he wants to try to block out, but he can't block them all out. Russ Addy goes back to the lead of the race. Wisloff slots into second. Don Federer and John Morgan, the cars behind. They finally got a little bit of a mean streak to them now.
I feel like there's a bit more aggression, because the last time I was here was when we were, I think it was the final season of the Pro Master, and I seem to remember it being at the Nürburgring Grand Prix, so just not too far away from here. And it's certainly a difference to see them in this Indy Pro Mazda 18. It's still a Pro Mazda, but it's certainly a very, very fast car, and it's interesting to see them taking on this challenge around here as well.
It's chassis code PM18, and then the championship got renamed from Pro Mazda to Indy Pro 2000. So now it's the Indy Pro 2000 PM18. They're not changing the chassis code. Is it like renaming ships? You've got to have a good reason, or it's bad luck.
Potentially.
But I also don't know how ships work either. But
hopefully no bad luck here as they lock wheels. Oh my word!
Wisloff and Federer lock wheels heading towards Schwedenkreuz, and they both end up in the Armco. Russ Addy carries on in the lead of the race. John Morgan goes through into second, but 2 of our leading cars collide, now functionally out of this race.
Just too close between them there. There wasn't enough room left on the outside. I think there was maybe just enough space, but it wasn't quite enough. And as you can see, it can so quickly go wrong. You lock wheels in one of these open wheel cars and veering off right. And a massive shout out as well to John Morgan, who managed to miss all of that and still remains only 1.5 seconds off the lead.
The John Morgan MO we've come to know, that is finish first, and result after that. And it does play out very, very well for him. Like I said, multiple time Super 70s champion, winning some races outright. And another classic performance from him to smell trouble and stay out of it. Do we actually have the statistics on him for this season, which is third in the championship from 4 rounds, 47 laps led, 1 pole position, 2 fastest laps.
It speaks for itself, doesn't it? Super 70s champion, avoiding the on pace today. Your top 4 kind of in a little bracket of their own. All within. What is it? 6 tenths of a second in qualifying. Rosadi obviously top. But very impressive with that type of rack, and it shows how well he's able to adapt to the situation, and also now it's increasingly because of being able to avoid those types of situations, because sometimes that's what happens in racing. We're looking a little bit back into orange.
Yeah, Barry Hills here in 4th is actually John Morgan's greatest rival in that Super 70s championship. Currently 2nd in those standings, currently 4th on the road and leading his teammate Gerhardus Jorison. In combination, they have been teams champions before and flying a very nice formation in 4th and 5th at the minute.
Yeah, and I just also saw Marcellus Bräuning had an incident just as we were ahead watching Barry Hills and Gerhardus Jorison. So yeah, that's unfortunate for Bräuning. But yeah, it's a nice little livery. I quite like the combination of what is it, grey, orange. You don't feel like you see the combination of grey and orange much, but really like the livery, and both doing really, really well here. Keeping it out. I shouldn't keep talking about barriers actually. But doing really well, racing each other really closely, and still putting on a show.
Just remember when you're writing your angry emails and tweets that I'm David Haynes and that's Will Chadwick.
I mean, it's probably the worst time, worst track to talk about barriers. But I'll still go there. I like to live life on the edge, as I'm sure a lot of these drivers like to. Driving at one of the most menacing tracks in the is. Is there anything close to the Nordschleife, David?
Not as far as a permanent circuit. I mean,
yeah, I'm thinking of something like Macau.
What's the proper name for Isle of Man TT?
Oh, I don't know, but you're right.
It's got a name, something circuit.
You are right. I would just say Mountain. I know that's not right. It is a massively challenging circuit, but we've got to remember that's bikes. This is cars. So if we're going to go into the bike area, I'd definitely say that in terms of menacing, and because you still have the TT bikes that go around there at 140 mile an hour lap averages. It's just ridiculous still, but you'd never see a car doing that. Or they don't really have the same cars like that. So
Barry Hills is going for a podium. He's managed to catch up to Greg Gilman, managed to get into the slipstream on the Dodinghua. He's made the move happen early, and you can see Greg Gilman thinks, maybe I've got a chance at going back. But I think they've basically hit the rev limiter by the time that they're 2/3 of the way down the straight, because they both seem to really top out at about 250, and Gilman wasn't able to make any more progress. It is possible to, even with the tallest available gear, top out 6th on the Dodinghua and with a slipstream.
Yeah, and you do make a good point actually, because it's something that I was neglectfully not noticing. But obviously we had our big crash between Dylan Fitter and Ragnar Wilsloff at the start of the lap, so that was for 3rd position. So Barry Hills now up behind his arch rival for the Super 70s Championship, as you mentioned. Not quite so on track, but in terms of the positions, 2 and 3, and I'm sure that RaceSpotTV will be wanting to keep on to Barry and try to close up on Greg Gilman and maybe also his teammate as well.
So they've started lap 4 of 5 in this first of 2 races. Race 2 will have its own qualifying session as well, so not to dismay for any of the drivers that we've seen, like Ragnar, Wisloff, Donald Fitterer, Marcellus Browning, Wolf Olsen, etc. They will have another chance and a fresh slate for race number 2. In this one, Russ Addy's worked his lead out to 2 seconds over John Morgan. And then this group, Barry Hills, Greg Gilman, and Gerhardus Jorrison. As I look up and down the time screen though, I'm thinking, who are our biggest movers? And there were a chunk that didn't qualify for all the reasons we talked about, how difficult it is to string together one qualifying lap around here. But then the big movers are Franz Josef Sturm, Robert Love, Eric Block, Douglas Beasley, and Gene Moore. I think started almost at the very, very back of the grid in 29th. Yes, he did. He's up into 17th at the moment. So there is a handful of drivers that over these short few laps and few overtaking opportunities have really moved up. So the most among them is Robert Love, who started 26th and now runs 12th. And I think could still hunt down a top 10 here, the way he's going and catching Richard Coolin.
Yeah, definitely, actually. Like you mentioned, Robert Love is our biggest mover, up 14 positions so far in today's race. You know, maybe some of those have been via things that I shall not mention, as said, mentioning too much in this podcast already, but definitely catching Richard Columbus, and he's actually not too far. We've got the graphics back up for you on the live timing, so you can see the gaps that are forming between each of our drivers, and as you can see, that gap between Columbia and Love is inside that second window.
One of the closest fights is this here with Hills, Gilman and Jorrison. We saw Hills pass Greg Gilman, and seems to have lit a little bit of a fire under him, because there was a while there where Gilman was one of the drivers sort of just in this little no man's land between the leaders and this charging group behind, but then did catch him, but have not then blown past him and blown him out of the water since. Gilman still looks pretty racy here, and Jorrison just on the tail end of that slipstream at the moment, as well as they work their way towards that most famous of corners that you really could only ever find at the Nordschleife.
And as you see them duck into the banking here, it's important for the drivers to keep the wheels further enough into the banking that they don't get spit out. Very, very, very easy to try and take too much speed, get spit out the other side and end up in the Arco. But none of our drivers did that this time around. Greg Gilman, like I say, chasing a bit more harder, maybe pushing a bit more as these laps go on. You know, we're on 4 out of 5. You know, we've got maybe just under 10 minutes to go as we're, you know, in that 2/3 round section of the lap, it feels like, and certainly could see some chopping and changing for position still in this race.
Great on board of shift lights, the gear selection, and this part of the track where it seems like the corners just keep coming at you, and you've got to stay close to the driver in front, because you know the Dodingoho is not far away. There's many challenging corners between here and there, including one that some cars get a little airborne at, is here, and then also a little further round as you drop down towards the first Flansgarten. Flat out though, all the way from here around, then Schwab and Twins.
Yeah, I think it's a great POV that we have there, because it actually shows you something that we talked about a little bit earlier in the broadcast about like how some of the apexes are a little bit blind, and you see as you go up, there's so much elevation here at the Nordschleife, and I think as you look at some of the elevations and where some of the corners are shaped, you can really see that from that T-cam position, which let's not forget is higher than the driver, so the driver sees it even worse. But our final corner here, before we get on to the bottom of the Gerhard Jorgensen has just dropped that a little bit too much to be able to make any move on the start.
This will be very, very illustrative though of how powerful it can be, with Gilman starting just a second behind Barry Hills. By this point, he is carrying 5 kilometers an hour more and just walking down that gap between himself and third place.
It's definitely not enough.
Tiergarten will come up just in time to save Barry Hills, but Gilman really able to close up more than half a second.
Yeah, it's important to note there that I think that, you know, Barry Hills had a very good end to our Nordschleife section as we start our final lap here for the first race here tonight. And yeah, I think it's important to note that that final few corners, if you get that right, it shows that you can build that gap, even with still being in tow. It's enough to fend off any challenges from behind, and it's almost something you can focus on as a driver, because why push like 100% on the other parts of the circuit if you're not quite as confident, where you can just give it 100% when you really need it the most at the end of it to maintain enough gap to keep the position. Because that next time by, it's like you're going to come and check the podium here today, but we've still got 20 kilometers to go, is it? So what can change from here?
Yeah, some sources say that this layout, the ones that call it 20, I think that's bridge to gantry, whereas the racing circuit layout is 22. Yeah, that's the discrepancy. So this one's definitely 22 kilometers. That's why you occasionally see 20 for some other lap times around the circuit. We do have just one more though. Russ Addy leading by that 3 seconds. And then John Morgan in second. It's all about, can Gilman strike back for a podium?
Yeah, and I think something that you may notice, viewers, on the side is every time you reach a kilometre mark, you do actually see the number on the side of the track, either on the right or the left, or it'll just be a number and it'll say, maybe you might be able to pick it out as 8, but I can assure you there is a KM on there, which means it is kilometres, and you'll see that every now and then.
You ever look out for the same thing when you're on a train?
Such as what, train stations? No, I don't.
No, some railway lines have, you know, mile markers as well.
Do they? Sorry, that's probably my young age. Well, I don't feel young, but comparatively, I think I am. But especially here tonight. But yeah, I mean, yeah, I don't know. I'm not really familiar with mile markers on train tracks, but I'm sure it's something that my granddad could give me a good chat about. So maybe I should ask him.
That's my recommendation for you. Yeah, okay. Gerhard Jorgensen had a bit of a moment and he's dropped back from this, but it looks like he will still hold on to 5th place. So Barry Hills doesn't have his teammate to help him out here against Greg Gilman. It'll be a straight fight between 3rd and 4th for who will stand on the podium in this first race. And as they go uphill, car in front starts to plateau its speed, and Gilman behind can really close. And these cars, that hill actually extends the strength of the slipstream, because it makes your initial VMAX of the first car lower, and those behind gain more as they struggle to go up the hill. one-hander towards the carousel. I think Gilman is looking just a little stronger than he maybe has in past. You want to make sure you stay in that nice groove at the carousel and you don't pop up out of the low line and have to do the walk of shame around the outside.
Yeah, and I think going back to our earlier point as well, I think you're more right than I am about that being the halfway mark, because it looks like that's about 13.8 kilometres into the track, so just over half. But I think I was saying 2/3 really, so I'd certainly give that to you as we pass our 15-kilometre mark here. But yeah, we're seeing Greg Gilman close up here, you know, as we're on our final lap. But the real important thing is that Greg is close coming out that final corner. This here is somewhat not important, being close here. I mean, obviously you don't want to get too far away because it will make it very, very hard to close up. But if Greg can keep this gap going through that final corner, it will be a massive chance for him to snatch the podium off Barry Hill and get it here in our first race here at the Nordschleife.
A couple of other battles to the line on this final lap potentially that could set themselves up. Doddinger and Bravery on the brakes into Tiergarten. We're looking at Franz Josef Stroman, John Hill. There's also Douglas Beasley and Eric Block, and maybe some others that could form. And I tell you what, Russ Addy's even dropped a little back closer towards John Morgan. There's only 1.7 seconds and rapidly shrinking in the gap for the lead as well. They come out onto the Doddinger. Russ Addy's there. Morgan not close enough to hook the slipstream. If it had happened just a couple of corners beforehand, maybe he could have gotten himself onto the fringes of challenging for the race lead. As it is, it's Russ Addy's to just hold on to till that checkered flag is displayed for Hills and Gilman. Can get a Golden Kopf now onto the Doddinger. Gilman just 0.6 of a second back. I think that's the sweet spot to close up in the slipstream, pass, and not be able to get past back. But look how much Barry Hills wants that podium. He'll weave it one way, weave it the other, and try to stop Gilman closing it up. Russ Addy, though, through the chicane towards the final corner he goes. He had the pole position, he had to dice back and forth, but he takes the win in the first of two races at the Nordschleife and 60-plus racing adventures. John Morgan follows in behind. Gilman's managed to get close enough to challenge for the podium, but rolls out of it. Barry Hills looks like he will hold on to that third position.
It was a very sensible piece of driving, but Barry Hills comes across the line to start 7th, but finish 3rd. So a really good result for Barry Hills. Xardo Fiorenson also up in position, but will be comparatively disappointed after out qualifying his teammate. We have potentially coming round, start 11th, finish 6th, another good run, and we've got more coming around.
Of course, it's a big lap, so it takes a while for everyone on the lead lap to get around to the checkered flag. This is Addy's teammate, Randy Shoemate. So 1st and 7th for them, 3rd and 5th for Hills and Yorison. You think about that's where just a good team performance, two reliable performers, really can shine in a championship like this. Storm behind, but I'd be interested to see Eugene Clark and Ulf Olsen, because they've just come onto the Doddinger. Olsen looks like he could challenge for the spot there, and indeed he will. They're only 3 seconds behind Eric Block as well in another one of those throwback liveries. Olsen has the speed from the slipstream, goes around the outside, but again, this is one of these occasions where the straight is so long, you can almost tuck back in if you've been past, leapfrog back, so go underneath the bridge. I think the opportunity is gone on that one, so Ulf Olsen making the move, one of the last opportunities on the last lap.
Of course, starting 5th, bit of a disappointing run for Olsen, but a good little recovery there on that final lap to get another position. Finishes 14th here in our first race.
Pretty close to Eric Block at the end there as well. This is the remaining of our drivers finishing, like Gene Moore, still one of the big movers again. He started at the very, very back of the grid in 29th, and he has gained 13 positions in this race to this point, and takes the checkered flag. And then Jericho, Bruce Bill Smitham, Ragnar Wisloff might get Smitham at the end here. This is the man himself, Ragnar Wisloff. No, Smitham's still 2 seconds ahead as they come out the final corner.
Still got some finishes here, yeah. Finish, of course, very, very challenging circuit, so gaps can open up pretty easily. Michael Grady comes on to the final straight, onto the dotting line there. One of our surviving drivers, and to be honest, it is a testimony just to survive this track sometimes. As much as I tried to curse as many people as possible, we're going to see... I shouldn't say this again. We're going to see 24 finishes here. I'm confident. 24 finishes for our first race. And like I say, even though I tried to curse everyone, it looks like 24 of our 28 starting drivers are going to survive.
The one driver we didn't see get to the grid was Pierre Zione. So technically Gene Moore had 29th position on the grid. One driver in front of him didn't take their spot. So he gets classified as having started 29th, but got one freebie. So he only made 12 passes, really, in that 5-lap race. Well done. We'll take a look at the results now that they are all finished from race 1 of 2, the Nürburgring Nordschleife. There they are. Russ Addy from John Morgan, Barry Hills and Greg Gilman dueling in fantastic fashion for the final spot on the podium. Gerhardus Jorrison, Peter Holstrom, Randy Shoemake, JC Hay, Franz Josef Stumm and John Hill completing the top 10. Let's see, the fastest lap went to Donald Fitterer, another driver who's going to look to do their best in the upcoming race 2 with its own qualifying session. It's a blank slate to try once again. Richard Coulomb was 11th, Douglas Beasley, Eric Block, Ulf Olsen, Eugene Clark, Gene Moore, Jerry Kerr, Bruce Poole, Bill Smitham and Ragnar Wisloff there, after needing to tow, rejoined the race and ended up finishing in 20th place. Mike Randy and Oyvind Anderson were the last cars on the lead lap because Robert Love, Bob Kern, Donald Fitterer were all one lap down. Then Paul Stump, Marcel Sproening and Joel Martin. Like we said, Pierre Zione scored 6 laps down in a 5-lap race. Only happens because he never took the start at race 1. We've got some drivers hanging by to chat with us, and boy have they been very, very patient. So hopefully they haven't gone and walked off on us. How about I see if I can get a bit of John Morgan. How you going?
Good, how are you?
Quite well. How are you feeling after that one? Obviously, of all the circuits we go to, by far the most challenging, even if there was no one else out there on track with you.
Yeah, it's. I was just talking to Russ about that. It's it's 5 laps it's a workout, mostly in just like you say, concentration, because you can't let up for a second, or that place will just spit you off into the weeds. And I was trying to stay close enough to Russ so that maybe I could get within the draft, but he obviously knew that and just pushed just hard enough to stay out, keep that gap.
You had maybe the best view of one of the most dramatic moments of the race as you, as we say in Australia, Stephen Bradbury'd your way into that second place. What did you see in front of you?
Yeah, Donald and Ragnar going down that straightaway, and it looked like it was just close. I mean, it looked like Donald was kind of close on the right-hand side, and then, when you get that close in iRacing, netcode can kick in, or somebody just flinches, and there they go. And I back off just a little bit when I kind of see that, and it paid off for me because it was just far enough back to just barely miss Donald's car when it was coming down.
Well, you take a second place outright. You were very strong in that race. You take the Super 70s win if you want to look at it that way. And best of luck for race number 2.
Super. Thank you.
What a lovely guy. Will, you've got to also be just as nice to our race winner, Russ Addy.
Well,
hey guys.
Russ, well, pole position, faster than a Mercedes AMG 1 or whatever they call it. So fantastic lap time. You kind of set the pace out there today. You lost the lead, I think it was on the first or second lap, but you were able to get it back. Stayed really calm, gradually opened your gap, and tell us for how it was kind of navigating the Nordschleife and what the prep that you put into this to make sure you were fastest here today before the event.
Hours and hours and hours of practice is what it is. Yeah, it was a hard race. The four of us were very similar, and unfortunately or fortunately, Ragnar and Donald came together, so that gave me a little buffer, but you can never relax.
100%, and like you say, we can tell it was hours of practice because this track is just so hard. What was, when you were practicing, what was the most challenging part of learning this track? Because there's huge curbs in this car. It's really easy to clip one and have a crash, ground the car, bottom the car out on a curb or something like this. What for you was the main challenge of learning this circuit? And was it for the first time, or had you drove it many times before?
Oh, I've driven it many times before. It's there's some corners that I have problems with. The last carousel and the right-hander at the top of the hill. I just either go too hard in or too slow. It never feels like you've done it right. So with some of those corners, I kind of give up a little speed to make sure I don't make an error.
Yeah, and the final question I'll ask you before this race, who do you think is your main rival going into the second race here tonight, and can you pull off the double win for us?
It's hard to say. I think the four of us that were up front are the challengers. We had a little bit of gap there right at the beginning, but this group is, there's 4 or 5 guys that can win pretty much any race, and you just got to be there and hopefully not make a mistake.
Fantastic political answer, Russ. But I know what you think deep down inside. All racing drivers do. But I'll let you get off, ready for your second race this evening. Thank you for talking to us, and congratulations once again on your win.
Yeah, thank you, and thanks for broadcasting.
Sorry, I moved him too quickly.
Show some respect, William Chadwick.
It was my bad, but I think we're going through a break, aren't we, David?
Yep, that's right, because we've had qualifying and race 1. Our drivers take a little break, and we start afresh with a brand new qualifying session and a brand new race 2. Russ Addy will look to go back-to-back, but we know that there's some drivers that could challenge him. Maybe John Morgan or Barry Hills find themselves more emboldened. Maybe defending champion, no, I don't think he's defending champion, but multiple-time champion Ragnar Wisloff will be able to show what he's capable of in race number 2, also 5 laps. Stick with us on RaceSpotTV because we'll be bringing that one to you shortly. Ready now for qualifying and race 2. This round 6 of 60 plus racing adventures from the Nürburgring Nordschleife. 60 plus the championship for iRacers, 60 years of age or over. And a great little community of like-minded and equally experienced racers. It's David Haynes here with Will Chadwick. Let's look over then where we stand in this championship now at round 6. Well, it all started at Laguna Seca, where we broadcast live on RaceSpot, and then the championship went away to the Iowa Oval, Circuit Manicure, Road America and Sonoma. Now, round 6, halfway point of the championship from Nordschleife. We'll go to Hockenheimring, Fuji, Long Beach, Sebring, Gateway, and we'll broadcast the season finale from Wilton Park, May 31st. As far as points go, coming into this round, Russ Addy led from Paul Stump, John Morgan, Mike Brandy, Marcellus Bruining, Randy Shoemake, Barry Hills, Peter Holstrom, Bruce Poole, and Gerhardus Jorrison. Things are going well for Russ Addy so far in this round as well. So, qualifying for race 2 underway at the moment, and like we made much mention of, Will, not an easy track to qualify at when you've got one lap, one shot, one opportunity, etc, etc. Very challenging to try to attack the lap and come out the other side unscathed.
Sounding a little bit like Eminem there, David, but yes, you are absolutely
not
correct.
Close enough for us to get a copyright strike.
No, that's good. Yeah, that's 100% true. But yeah, like you say, very easy to make a mistake. We saw many drivers come unstuck in the first race. Not traditionally that hard to get an off track, but there is definitely places, but menacing curbs, tricky braking zones, hard apexes, plenty of challenges that our drivers have. And like you say, see one of our leading few trip up potentially, but we're still yet to see, as they're only around about 12 kilometers into the lap at the moment.
Yeah, I'm watching some sectors and they tell me that we're gonna have no qualifying time from Ragnar Wisloff or Oyvind Anderson, and that Donald Fitterer is tracking with a bunch of purple sectors. That Paul Stump is just going to take a couple away, so I reckon a Stump Fitterer front row could happen. Russ Addy has just been putting together some consistent, if not blitzing sectors here, as he looks to maybe go back-to-back as far as the race wins are concerned, and you can see where he is around the lap, heading into that carousel, or as the Germans call it, carousel.
That wow, you pronounce that so much like a true German native. But yeah, I can't quite match those levels of pronunciation. But like you say, you see Russ Addy on your screen at the moment. I think not traditionally, but what we saw from the first race, a little bit better in the second half of it. So I wouldn't be surprised to maybe see him light up the timing screens as we get towards the end of the lap. But like you say, it's interesting to see how well Fitterer is going. I did have a quick look at Fitterer's lap to start this off, and he was looking pretty good. But Addy here hitting some really nice apexes, and definitely could be gaining a little bit of time as we enter final third.
It's actually a bit weird with this one-lap qualifying. The drivers start at the exit of the tourist pits, so very short run around to where they can start attacking the lap, and they can start on very cold tyres, but they can get quite warm by the end of a 22-kilometre qualifying lap. So definitely the drivers ought to find a little more grip and confidence in the back half of the lap than they do first half. So far, as all the drivers around in their lap, I'm looking at about 11 mini sectors here. Donald Fitterer is fastest of all in the first, and Paul Stump in the second, Fitterer in the third and fourth, Stump again in the fifth, John Morgan fastest in the sixth, Gerhardus Jorrison fastest in the seventh, and then Paul Stump again fastest in the eighth. So there is a lot of variation out there, and as you can see, Fitterer and Russ Addy most of the way around completing this lap, we'll start to see some of the times hit the timing column. And I'm thinking Fitterer, Stump, Morgan and Jorrison for our first 2 rows.
An interesting order considering how, I suppose you could say, dominant Addy was in that first qualifying session. 6/10 over the rest of the drivers. Our kind of front 4 pack that kind of had a little bit of pace advantage over then on back. But yeah, interesting to see. We're going to see some qualifying times come up very, very shortly. One thing to note is you should have seen my face when I saw that Alton Park was the final live round here, as Fitterer posts the fastest time we've seen this evening on 29.5.
Got a full second over John Morgan. Paul Stump goes ahead of that. McCormick, Hay and others start to trickle in on the timing. Douglas Beasley likewise. Driver on a lap, I'm still interested to see. Most is probably Gerhardus Jorrison. But yeah, it's Stump, Fitterer, Morgan for the top 3 at the moment. Really want Jorrison to slip into those top 2 rows, like where I said he might be. It's a little wide in the final corner, but he'll cross the timing line, and it will not be quick enough to displace Russ Addy, and it puts him 5th and makes a fool and a liar out of me, but makes for a very interesting and competitive looking grid.
Yeah, and I think it's going to be interesting considering that we saw a few people that are unable to get your lap. The most interesting one is the multi-time champion Ragnar Wisloff, who will be starting from, it looks like, 17th here for our race. Still a couple of minutes left in qualifying, and potentially 1 or 2 others finishing it. But if not, we may get fast-tracked to the race. And yeah, 28.9 from Paul Stump. Where did that come from? That's an amazing lap time. And, a whole 0.7 of a second faster than our race 1 pole time. I mean, he is German, so yeah, well, maybe not. The German bracket with Inside iRacing, German, Austria, and somewhere else that I fail to remember.
CH is Switzerland.
Why? Why did they make CH Switzerland?
I don't know, but I've got a minute to Google it.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting, but definitely could be. Wouldn't surprise me though if Paul Stump is German. So we'll see. We'll see. Maybe we'll get a word from him later. I'm not quite sure, but maybe as a very, very.
It stands for Confederatio Helvetica.
Wow, I kind of like that. Even it's really confusing. Confedio. What was that? I don't know. It was really interesting though what you said.
Well, like Helvetic Confederation. Well, yes, like the font Helvetic. Yeah, the font is named after the Switzerland.
I think you could have just put SW though to make it more easy to understand. Our producer does say Swaziland there, but I think Switzerland would come in priority when you say SW. But enough of the talking. I think we've got a grid coming up for you shortly.
We do. It's an interesting one because it's Paul Stump and Donald Fitterer on the front row, then John Morgan and Russ Addy behind. Teammates on row 3, Gerhardus Jorrison and Barry Hills. Ulf Olsen starts out of 7th, which will have him on the inside of Peter Holstrom. We're all Viking row 4. And then Bruce Poole, Mike McCormick, JC Hay and Douglas Beasley. Mike Randy and John Hill. And then it looks like Joel Martin is the last driver with a qualifying time. There will be no qualifying time for Franz Josef Stomm, and critically, Ragnar Wisloff will start out of 17th. Mervyn Anderson in 18th. Again, no qualifying time for Richard Cool, Bill Smitham, Pierre Dione, Jerry Kerr and Gene Moore. The tiebreaker in this situation is iRating. So Franz Josef Stomm with 2,766 iRating is the therefore highest seeded ranked driver without a qualifying time. We'll give him 16th, and then the rest of the unqualified drivers behind that.
Certainly an incentive to get your iRacing up a little bit if you race in the series, because you never know. I think especially on a day-to-day where you get so little laps and so little chances, it's maybe a little bit more prevalent. But I'm sure we're going to see drivers come forward. It really interests me to see how far Wislov can make it through the field, and maybe if we can get a little bit of a charge going on. But it's going to be hard. It's relatively hard to pass around here because of all the twisty circuits, corners I should say. Yeah, I'm interested to see what's going to happen. I'm excited, and who's going to win? David.
Paul Stump.
Russ Addy, double. I reckon he's going to do it. Anyway, we've had our say. It's time for racing.
Yeah, indeed. To the front row, Paul Stump and Donald Fitterer. The pace car is already in, and Paul Stump decides when he's going to go. Donald Fitterer decides to give him a lot of gap. The green flag drops now, so that's a good run around the outside from Russ Addy, already up into third. It's cold tyres for everyone as they go down into turn one, and down into turn one it is, because the track drops away sharply as they head towards the twisty section of the Hudson Valley. Paul Stump's hoping to maybe break that draft early, because we know how powerful it is in these packs early on. He races his way through there for the first time. The 5-lap race. Once again, the driver's making positions on that opening lap and opening couple of corners. Barry Hills has jumped his teammate Gerhardus Jorison up into 5th. And JC Hayes already jumped a couple up into 9th as well, but they flow out of that section of corners into the first high-speed section of the lap, up towards full plat, scene of our hearts and our mouths, lap 1 of race 1, and then it's fast from there down towards Schwedenkreuz as well. I think this is JC Hay in there, and Russ Addy in 3rd, John Morgan behind him in 4th, and those two just a little separated from the leading two of Stump and Fitterer.
Yeah, and I'm keeping an eye a little bit further back. Wislov has made decent positions, I'd say maybe 4 or so, in this opening section. But like you say, trying to break the toe early on is pretty hard, considering how soon you end up getting to a rather large straight. You'd say that your top 4 drivers are somewhat within tow still, but there's a little gap between Addy and Fittler. But it's going to be interesting to see whether that can close up shortly. Of course, Stump dominant in qualifying, but that certainly doesn't say what his race pace will be like, and we'll see shortly.
You can see your top 6 in shot. Come around to one of the sections of track that's always tripped me up, because you're so committed to that fast left-hand kink that then leads you straight into the braking zone here, where you can go off wide and catch the grass. And then it's downhill in a sharp right-hander, and then into a quick flip-flop and into miss-hit-miss. Jim Coolum has gone into the grass and the barrier, where I said it can happen all too easily. On board then here with JC Hay, the Ohioan, or at least Club Ohioan. Yeah, that is, and here's another word that you're going to learn from me: the demonym of people from Ohio.
Right. Okay, I'm gonna pretend like I know what you're talking about, but we do ride on board with one of my favourite cameras here to look at Nordschleife circuit. I think it gives, like we talked about in the first race, a little bit of an appreciation for how much elevation the track has. Got a little bit of a battle pack opening up here as we look on board we look towards Beasley. I think he's just been overtaken by Ragnar Wislov, who's starting to make his way forward. 4 positions up, and maybe even 1 more as he looks to make the move on
Brady.
And has had it completed already as he chases down the top 10.
Yeah, big middle pack here in the middle positions of the grid, from Wolf Olsen in 8th down to John Hill in 17th, and you see up the hill such a strong slipstream in this section, but it's like a draft train for Wislov, and he is going to be so gutsy on this opening lap, trying to take another spot away from JC Hay. He does it. Next up for him would be McCormick, and then Holstrom, and then Olsen. Whistloff slicing his way through the field, 6 positions in the first half of the lap. I think they'll be harder to come by in this back half of the lap from the carousel and around, as Mike Grandy has a moment through the slow right-hander there, until we get to that most famous high-speed section of the Dottingham as well. He's already all over the back of Mike McCormick. I used to know the name of the corner up the top here. Oh wait, no, yeah, it's Hoa Acht.
I still can't pronounce that. Yeah, Whistloff so brave into what I call Bravery Corner. I'm sure there's a different name for it, but I think universally it's kind of known as that because of how brave you have to be through there. But I mean, even braver to overtake, am I right? So Whistloff, fantastic move, and really is paying off for him, this little charge, as he is on the edge of that top 10. I'm sure we'll be making a move soon as we look towards Paul Stump at the front.
Yeah, critical phase of this lap to try to be quick through this section. If you're going to break the slipstream to Donald Fitterer behind, just within that tantalising 1 second range, the two of them are motoring away from Russ Addy and John Morgan 3rd and 4th as well. So starting to create a gap, Stump and Fitterer to the rest of the field. You've got to take a little bit of risk to stay in the race at this point. Out to you that at some point the graphic in the top left will catch up to the fact that we're going to hit 5 laps before we hit 1 hour and 40 minutes in this race, unless they all go really slowly. I think even with pit lane speed limiter on, you get this done in 1 hour 40. No, because it's a slow pit lane here. Actually, did some mental math in my head there. 1.2 seconds as they come onto the Dottingham. Donald Fitterer will probably struggle to catch up. There's a large pile up behind with Peter Holstrom and Mike McCormick, and I think Ragnar Whistloff almost got caught up in all of that as well. John Morgan has the slipstream on Russ Addy for 3rd. And here is Ragnar Whistloff, wheels on his wagon as he hunts down 8th place for his 9th position on this opening lap.
So what I can tell you from looking back on my side, of course we're struggling a little bit with replay, so apologies to that to the broadcast, to people watching the broadcast, but what I can say is essentially Ulf Olsen had a moment coming out of the second carousel and pulled over to the left-hand side, therefore trying to let past Peter Holstrom and Mike McCormack. Peter Holstrom got loose, McCormack collected, and Whistloff just missed it. Whistloff, I should say.
John Hill going past Franz Josef Stump with Joel Martin behind in this little three-way group there. That's Oyvind Anderson, who's probably going to get passed by Bill Smitham, unless the damage onto Oyvind Anderson's car means he's got a super-duper low drag setup. Here's Ulf Olsen having gone through the pit lane as, I believe, to his car. First lap completed. Biggest mover absolutely is Ragnar Whistloff.
As we start lap number 2, just passing the 6 not quite for the ones that you see on the screen, but for our readers. But yeah, Stump has looked to make. Why did Stump finishing in that first race? I was trying to get some results, but wasn't quite able to find them. You have? I put you on the spot.
No, you've absolutely put me on the spot. I feel like he was one of the drivers we said didn't manage a qualifying time and then maybe got tagged in an incident much deeper in the field.
I would certainly have to agree with you, yeah, because I think with how, as you see, the drivers are joining like you mentioned, but I think with how quick he's been in this opening bit of the race, I could only imagine that must have been the case, because trust me, the Nordschleife is not a track that you just learn how to go this quickly on all of a sudden, and has been unstumpable in that in that first lap.
Now, we don't know Eminem a damn thing, but you owe me royalties now.
Nah, I'm sorry, I'll have to pay up. Just send me an invoice after the commentary.
I'll hold you to that one. So, John Morgan, 4th. I spoke to him after race 1. He was once again in fantastic spirits, and why not? He's doing good things as far as the outright results, but also very, very strong in 670s. There's your top 4 as they run towards Louder Links, and it's Bergwerk that comes after that. Pretty sure is where they're heading now. Super challenging corner. You want to hook a late apex. There's a little hint of banking that lets you carry more speed, but only when you place the car perfectly up against the inside curb. Don't strike it. So that's another one of those corners that takes a lot of practice to perfect, and then it shows in how much speed you carry out of there up the hill towards Bravery Corner. John Morgan's had a good run through there, within a second of Russ Addy, and getting about 4 kilometers an hour more speed in that slipstream as well. Super useful to find a little bit of time, and for free.
I must say how much Federer is pushing. He actually hit the wall, or brushed the wall I should say, on the entry to Bravery Corner, opening up that corner to the absolute maximum. The drivers here today are pushing so hard at such a challenging circuit. You cannot say it's not impressive. I mean, if you're sat there in the YouTube live chat thinking, oh, how hard can it be? Get yourself an iRacing subscription. Go drive this car around this place and you will be thoroughly surprised at how hard it is. Because, trust me, these drivers are making it look easier than it actually is.
Beautiful on board as they go through for Acht towards Lippinen, which is one of my favourite sections of the track here. Really quick change of direction, just not hitting the brake, but just playing with the throttle, and you can ride a little bit of the curb there. You can't many other places, but there you often can get just a little bit. And then downhill, trying to take the car to the left to then get the full width of the track up towards Brunchen. Very, very famous on YouTube. And then ice curve, the blind left over the crest here. You've just got to know where it goes to know how much speed you can carry through there. And then often all 4 tyres in the air, approaching here where you really want to flow some speed as well. Small mistakes get punished, but you really can go through there in 5th gear, as you see John Morgan do it. In 6th gear he goes, Stefan Beloff-esque, which is absolutely flat out in these cars with the amount of grip that they have, relatively speaking. And he's catching Federer in second, but second place has not been catching the leader, so as they're about to enter the Dodingerhoa, absolutely could get interesting over the podium positions on that tour.
Yeah, and as you say, just exiting this final corner before we get onto the Dodingerhoa, 0.8 of a second is your gap, and to me, the more interesting one could be the gap between John Morgan and Russ Addy. It's definitely close enough to where we could see a move. However, these cars, as we mentioned, could start to top out, and definitely are as they hit the 260 km/h barrier.
Rev limit will go brr at about 260, I would say. Goldfitter is doing 250, Addy doing 258, John Morgan doing 260. They all close up on each other, but the corner comes just in time for Donald Federer. Addy was really breathing down his neck, but you want to be side by side before you get to the Billstone Bridge. If you're not side by side there, it's such a risky manoeuvre to show your nose late, and the closing speed becomes not quite enough. Start another lap, and they really were flying on that one, as you see the purple indicator move around a little bit. Fastest lap of the race changes hands a couple of times. Stump gets it, and then Addy gets it back. Pretty sure that lap from him just then in racing conditions faster than the pole lap, and indeed it was. The pole was 28.9, and Russ Addy's just laid down at 28.4 with, much warmer tyres, a little bit less fuel, a little help in the slipstream, but it's not often that happens. It definitely doesn't happen at some other tracks.
100%, and 300ths of a second separates Morgan and Addy on that lap just before. Of course, they were all kind of towing up to the back of Fitterer, but I think it's amazing to think that around the 22 kilometre lap, 300ths is all that separates our fastest lap. But we could see a move here for Addy. Seems to be sitting back a little bit as we start to enter the Argon. I can't remember the corner names. Arenberg, there you go. I knew it started with an A. But Addy kind of sitting back. The problem is here, now, this track is so traditional and quite narrow that even in a car that's relatively narrow, like the Indy Pro 2000 PM18, it's hard to make that move, and Addy really is going to have to go brave and send it here if he wants to make a manoeuvre. He's looking left and right. He's making Fitterer think about it, but I think he's going to need a little bit of a mistake, or maybe one of our harder braking zones later on in the lap.
Critically still, just about 2 seconds between Stump at the lead and Fitterer here in second. If they start battling, they might let him get away. On the other hand, if Addy's got the pace, he's losing valuable opportunity, being stuck behind when he could be laying down quick lap times, catching up to that leader, and maybe even dragging his car forward. Quick change of direction there with a little bit of camber that you can almost go flat out through, and then miss, hit, miss, which looks like it was kind of a hit, potentially you sunk my battleship scenario that time around for them. Different cars with different, levels of grip, different performance will actually take different lines through there, because if you have a lot of power but not a lot of grip, you'll look for a late apex to maximise your traction, but if you've not got a lot of power but you do have a lot of grip, you want to take the shortest line around there and also just maximise your apex speed, and that's where it's a little miss. And Bergwerk, where you try to carry as much speed as possible through up towards your favourite braking corner.
Oh, absolutely my favourite. It's hard to say whether we'll see a move here. It would definitely have to be a daring one from Addy. Addy gets into the slipstream. That gap closing down now, past 0.2 of a second. Will a move be made? Maybe a slight shadow of a defensive line but not quite the confidence like we saw from Whistler earlier on in the race for Addy to make the move. There's now another chance down into a heavy braking zone just a couple corners later. Definitely a defensive line there. Kind of shows that sort of trajectory. And Addy's kind of stuck here. I mean, I don't think there's much between the pace of Fitterer and Addy, considering what we know Addy can do in qualifying and what we saw Fitterer do. Their best lap times across these two races in the qualifying seconds just split by 1/10 of a second at over 22 kilometres. But it's definitely going to be hard for Addy here, but if he keeps close, going into the dot into her later on in the lap, we should see an overtake happen.
We also caught a glimpse of Ragnar Wisloff picking off another spot up into 7th, and he's got to make up another 6 seconds to Gahardis Jorgensen in 6th for his next opportunity. A little dry as you start getting into the more competitive drivers at the pointier end of the field, and first couple positions come easy, and then it's more work for each successive one. This trio here in 2nd and 3rd and 4th. Talked about the Anglo-Dutch teammates, Barry Hills and Gahardis Jorgensen, but Addy gets a rough ride over the curb.
Oh, that was so close for Morgan, and yet again, somehow he avoids every crash that ever happens. I'm sure that'll come back to bite me from what I said, but yeah, going through what some people would refer to as a YouTube corner, which I'm sure a lot of you have seen clips from over the years, dipping a wheel, bottoming the car out, and just touching that gravel section. Fantastic instinct though to lock up the brakes and keep the car straight, which was able to stop Addy from hitting the barrier, and Morgan, with a great bit of anticipation, able to avoid having an accident. But what that has done is opened up your gap between 2nd and 3rd now to 3.3 seconds or something like that.
Yeah, it'll give Paul Stump more confidence. Puts Don Fitterer and John Morgan sort of in no man's land. Addy might have had another problem.
I agree.
He's on the tow hook. I wouldn't be surprised if he melted those tyres and then had a subsequent issue.
In fact, I can confirm that what happened was just before our second carousel section, the fast right hander, very easy to miss the apex, catches the grass, and as soon as you catch the grass on the outside, straight on into the barrier, and unfortunately that will be race over for Russ Addy. So potentially my interview with him, I did curse him, but why would I be here if I wasn't to initiate the commentator's curse in the first place?
I think I said stump, didn't I?
You definitely did say stump, and your prediction would be looking incredibly good at the moment, especially if you had money on it. But we don't here today because we're just having some light racing fun. But yeah, not quite like the horse racing that was going on at the weekend that I'm sure many people watched. But yeah, as we look towards the back straight here, we're looking at Beasley, who is in not too far back from JC Hay. You know, we're looking at maybe 0.8 of a second is the gap between the two of them. Not enough to catch, and as JC Hay breaks the toe, I'm definitely seeing that will happen. We're looking a little bit further back yet again. I believe that is side by side for John G. Hill and Franz Joseph Stum, who has made that position up now as we enter down into the last stage of our lap.
It's Ulf Olsen in green and yellow, and remember he went through the pit lane. I think he's now trying to recover some of those spots, and some recovery needed for Bill Smitham by the looks of it. And one of the drivers has been through pit lane recovering spots. Mike Grandy and Oyvind Anderson and Mike McCormick. Nate are going to have a nice little battle on the Dottinghua. Such a great little closer to this lap is, okay, we've had off-camber corners, we've had lightly banked corners, we've had famously incredibly banked corners, we've had crests and curbs and everything. How about we also just have the longest straight that you ever could think of?
Yeah, I mean, it feels, and I don't know if it is, someone I'm sure could answer this. Maybe you can, as we see the move for Anderson past McCormack. Longer than the old traditional Le Mans straight, but I would not be 100% sure on that. It certainly feels very long, but I'm sure someone knows that.
Avis has got them both beat. That is unfortunately no more. But I mean, the Autobahn's still there, but it's not used as a racetrack. No, the full classic Lausanne straight would be longer than the Dottinghua, I think.
I certainly would agree with that aspect, but I would say that of an uninterrupted straight line, it might go to the Dottinghua. But I'm not sure, because you've got that right-hand kink in the Le Mans straight, and I think certainly at a very high speed, if you were flat out, it would be a lift or something. It really depends what car you're in.
Mark Webber definitely had a lot of lift there.
You always come out with a good thing. But yeah, well, maybe not a joke for him on the day, but we can laugh at it now. They're all okay. But certainly referring to that famous clip of Mark Webber. In the forest, was it? In his Mercedes GT1 car, I seem to think would be the case.
It's the CLK-LM. CLR. One of them.
As our producer mentions to us, and I just saw it as well, Jorgensen has disconnected from the server. It looks to be a manual disconnect, so I can only imagine there was some sort of issues, such as maybe a crash. Wouldn't want to say that without that being the case, but did end up in the pit lane beforehand. And yes, as I can mention, earlier on in the lap, it was clip of the grass, ended up in the Armco. Easy as that, and it's so easy to make a mistake like that.
JC Hay, Douglas Beasley, Franz Josef Sturm for 7th, 8th and 9th. Franz Josef Sturm, of course, started with no qualifying time. We made much discussion of that. He's now caught up to this group where Douglas Beasley is going to have a cheeky look on JC Hay towards the bravery corner. That's where the bravery is, because it's not a straight line up there. Lots of little kinks and jags in the road that make it challenging to go side by side, not knowing if the driver you're racing with will hold their line or hold their side of the circuit. Douglas Beasley makes work going ahead of JC Hay, and Franz Josef Sturm might be emboldened by what he saw in that.
Well, certainly a brave move, like you say, from Beasley. Fantastic to the inside. Gives plenty of room, very clean move, and moves himself up into 7th position, promoted as of some of the casualties we've had further forward. Important to note that Whistler is up to 5th, as you can see on your timing screen, but has a large amount of work it would be to make up any time to Barry Hill. And as we watch this battle now between Stum and Olsen, sorry, not Stum and Olsen, Stum and Hay, I definitely think there could be a move on here as well.
Yeah, I'd say so. Just based on how close and confidently Stum is placing the car to the apex, because that is a long way from the apex for JC Hay. Luckily, there's enough room out there to recover it before Joseph Stum will go up into 8th. JC Hay will keep all the wheels on the wagon, but fall into the class of Olsen. Stum has a little bit of a problem at ice curve as well, and I think he might have gotten too much curve there and high-sided the car on one of them. He keeps it together, but will not streak away from Jason Hay as quickly as the other one has maybe thought he might do.
You certainly make a good point there. As we saw Stum make the mistake first, just before YouTube corner, and had enough room to recover it, but actually not Stum, I should say. It was Jason Hay, I believe, who made the mistake first, and then Stum just got on the power a little bit early and instinctively locked up the brakes, got it back going. Very good recovery, and they're all back together again magically.
Fantastic entertainment for the whole family. He's off right again. JC Hay will get sideways and clip off Olsen, who I think has a little bit of damage there, and he rides the curb wrong as well. And JC Hay will likely have even more significant damage from his contact with the Armco. The Holstrom next to arrive on the area. The race leader has started the final lap. He'll stop 2.8 seconds ahead of Donald Fitterer. And then another chunk of time to John Morgan motoring around in 3rd.
I mean, what can you really say about Paul Stum as we enter this final lap? In the Valvoline Pro Mazda, as you could call it, with the beautiful livery that Paul has on display for us today. He's been nothing short of dominant in this first opening 4 laps, and only, 17, 18 kilometres to go. Pretty easy, right? Well, not indeed. It's certainly still a challenge to the end, but Stum's been fantastic, and there's nothing more you can say, really, about his performance in this second race. Fitterer still resides in 2nd, but really hasn't, as soon as that gap opened up, hasn't been able to close it back down, and it's a testament to the pace that Stum has been running, doing a 28.6 by himself on the last lap, and also had reached all the fastest lap without tow. We saw Addy get it initially, broke into the 27s on the 3rd lap, did Stum. And, I mean, there's nothing you can say other than incredible in his performance in this second race. The over 60 racer doing fantastic.
Yeah, absolutely. Almost looks a little like a victory lap for him at the moment. Have a cheeky look at the sectors again, because he still looks like he's pressing on at speed.
I would certainly say that you could kind of calm down a bit, but that can be one of the easiest things to do to make a mistake, because the moment you go, you know what, I'll back off and I'll just take it a bit easy, suddenly your braking markers change, your turning points change, the way the car performs, the amount of downforce you have, virtually everything can change the moment you stop pushing, and that can be the crucial point of where you make a mistake. So for Stum, pushing on this final lap is a natural thing for him to do, and I don't see why not, considering how amazing he has been this season on this first team.
Hey, here's another one I know that I hadn't said yet. He had a bit of a lock-up, actually, we saw on this lap at Verzeichen. But almost everyone will lock in inside tyre now with how quickly the track drops away from you and really just unloads front of the car. You can often carry the lock-up. So looking at these sectors, he's best in the previous sector for 45.3 and he did a 45.7, so a couple of tenths lost there. But he's got a personal best in the next, so still pressing on this particular lap is Paul Stump, even if Federer's got just a tiny bit closer to him in places.
Pressing on, you know, we've not got quite a battle at the moment on our track, but it does say, you know, Nordschleife is such a hard track. These guys are lapping faster than the official production car lap record around the circuit, which you kind of expect and maybe don't at the same time.
How much
considering
horsepower does that thing have, though?
this, I don't know, maybe
the
AMG project. I believe it's a bit detuned, so I imagine around 800, but I will do a small Google while you say whatever you want to say, and I will come back to you.
Use small Google, and I'm gonna go 950 plus or minus 50. We'll see if I'm correct about that. Like I'm correct about Paul Stump winning this race.
Oh, you've been a big call there, coming to the end. I'm just having a look, and it feels.
He won't let me down.
I know he doesn't want to let me down. It says here that the AMG project, whatever it is, the AMG 1 is rated to 782 kilowatts, which relates to 1,063 PS or 1,049 horsepower. So yeah, just a bit of horsepower, really.
Okay, outside of my
Yeah, but you were fairly close. I was thinking 800 from you, because I was thinking they'd detune it a little bit. But the really interesting thing for me on that car is it has to have an engine rebuild every. I think it's somewhat not very high, but I think it's around about 50 hours, which really isn't a lot. Or maybe no, it's not hours. It's miles. I think it's every 25,000 miles it has to have an engine rebuild, which I can assure you for a Formula 1 engine won't be very much as we watch Stump come on.
Well, that's a deal breaker for me. I wouldn't be buying one.
Oh no, I know you were considering it, so I just decided to give you that fact. Maybe the GT3 RS is more your type.
Yeah. Or a Cayman GT before that. More my style. Paul Stump's lead out to 4.5 seconds. He's not got to be worried about Donald Federer sucking up to him in the draft on the Dotting Gahur for the final time, the final race at the Nordschleife. He's only got to worry about 1.5 more braking zones to see the checkered flag. He was dominant in qualifying. He's led every lap. And with the checkered flag waiting for him, Paul Stump will ease it through the final corner and take the race win in 60-plus racing adventures at the Nordschleife. Federer will follow him through for second. And John Morgan will make it 2 podiums from 2 races. A real habit of his in this style of racing.
Barry Hills, for the second time, follows up his Super 70s arch nemesis, as so we say. They're probably best friends. Yeah, 4th again. Another good result in backing up Morgan and keeping it close in that championship. Ragnar Wilsloff has already crossed the line, coming from 17th to 5th, as we look back to, I believe, Bruce Poole, who started 9th, going to finish 6th as long as the last few corners don't pull out any surprises, but a decent run as well.
Getting a lot of cars still to come around and take the checkered flag. Maybe next up, Douglas Beasley, Franz Josef Stump behind him, and John Hill and Peter Hallström running as the top 10 at the moment. There is Stump.
Of course, we saw make that small mistake earlier on, but was able to keep it together and still get a solid 8th place finish. We've already seen Hill across the line for 9th, and JC. It's not JC. It's Hallström, who looks like he's going to finish in 10th. So just on that last lap, making up that final position and getting himself into the top 10. JC Hay rounds that final corner to get 11th, and still got them coming.
It's a big lap with lots of places for drivers to hide, and you can go through the pit lane twice and stay on the lead lap. For Bill Smithson, for example, Peter Holstrom has been through the lane, Mike McCormick's been through the lane, Evan Anderson, Mike Grandel, Joel Martin, a lot of drivers wanting to make sure they stay in this one, and of course fast repair is available to them to do that. He's one of them. Oh, he's made a mess of Tiergarten, unfortunately. The final real hurdle on the lap, and he just overcooks it a little bit.
Just gets away with it, not really making too hard contact with the barrier, so able to finish off nicely. And I can tell you, he's a little bit further back. I believe Mike Grady made a mistake and is currently limping to the line at what is currently a speed of 100 kilometers an hour entering the dock from the right. So we'll hopefully make it in time before the end of this race. But we're not watching him at the moment. We are watching Anderson, who is making sure that he finishes his race, making up 3 spots from the qualifying position into 15th.
Do you reckon Joel Martin will get 15th? Here's Martin at speed, doing 250 kilometers an hour. Mike Grandy continues to limp at 100. So there's Grandy on the right, and we are going to fly past him at a delta of 150 kilometers an hour into 15th place. Smithson could still even
I think
get
Smith
him
will, you know. I think that will be the case. And it shows just one mistake, you know, a similar mistake to we saw Andy make actually, but a little bit harsher actually. Surprised that all the wheels are still staying on, although it looks like they are hanging on for dear life. But yeah, I believe Smithson will be passing, as we see now, Brady, who made that mistake in one of the final corners, unfortunately. Thanks to one-wheel drive.
Holding on for dear life as well. The front right wheel hardly attached. He's clearly got a broken drive shaft or something somewhere. If he's banging it off the limiter in 6th and only doing 90 k's an hour. So, rest in peace to the clutch in that thing as well.
It's not enjoying itself. I think it's definitely the one-wheel drive, which is not good. But it looks like Grady will be our final classified finisher, as Invaliant makes it to the line. Grady through the final corner and finishes off in our final finishing position, 17th place.
He can only manage about 60 k's an hour by the end of all of that, but he does get it to the checkered flag, and it counts as the lead lap for Mike Grady. Let's look at our results from the pole to the win. Paul Stump made this place his home. Don Fitterer and John Morgan complete that podium. Then Barry Hills, Ragnar Wisloff, spirited drive from no qualifying in 17th to finish in 5th, and I think that is his best result of the round as well. He's missed a lot of races this season, and so doesn't quite feature at the point of the championship like we have come to expect from him. Bruce Poole, Douglas Beasley, Franz Josef Strom, John Hill, Peter Hallstrom is that top 10. Then Ohioan JC Hay, Gene Moore, Mike McCormick, Oyvind Anderson, Joel Martin and Bill Smitham picked off Mike Grandy on the final lap, who was the last car on the lead lap. Olsen 1 lap down, Jorrison 2, Addy 3, and retiring on the opening lap, Richard Coulomb, Piazzione and Jerry Kerr. Got a couple of our drivers standing by to have a chat then after that second race. And I think I spoke to John Morgan last time around, so that's you now, Will.
Yeah. Hello, John. Congratulations on a double podium, and I believe winning the Super 70s category, if I'm correct. Maybe I'm not. I think so. But yeah, very consistent. Again, you avoided a crash and was able to get through Russ Addy just having a little moment, who we also saw have an issue a little bit later on in the lap. But what I will say is congratulations on your P3. Tell us what went into your prep for this round and how you found those races here tonight.
Just like most, a fair bit of time. I did practice on Saturday and Sunday, and then we do a USF 2000 race on Monday, which I think is great prep for this car because everything happens a little slower. You can pick up a few more reference points around the track. And so a decent amount of track, but I've got a lot of laps here in the Skippy back in the old 2K World Cup days. And it's one of those tracks I really enjoy, and I don't seem to have any trouble remembering every little bump and curve. So I like it.
Absolutely, and certainly, like you say, experience does come to pay off very well. And as you say, with the double podium today, it has been that for you. What I will say is, who do you think for the we're halfway through the season. Super 70s is obviously a championship. We've seen Barry Hills come up close behind you multiple times. Is he your main rival towards the end of the season? Would you say?
Barry and Mike. Mike is a little bit streaky. Mike can win a race on pretty much any given weekend, and Barry is just getting faster. So yeah, those two guys in the Super 70s are I keep an eye on where they are.
Yeah, absolutely. And I wish you the best of luck for when we see you at Alton Park, the best track in the world. I don't care what anyone says, that's my opinion. Later on in this evening. But congratulations on your double podium today. And thank you.
All right, see you.
Great to have two opportunities to speak to John Morgan. And second place, man, Donald Fitterer is going to join us. The results would say second on the grid to second in the race, but it's never that easy here.
Absolutely. There's always a chance of crashing.
You would have maybe been watching very, very closely the gap between yourself and Paul Stump. There's a lot of opportunities to really use the slipstream around here.
Well, unfortunately, Paul has been so fast this week. My best time was a 6:28, almost flat, and Paul was consistently doing 6:26s in practice.
Freakishly quick, you guys didn't quite get towards that in the race. What's the mentality like with how much risk you can take with unforgiving curbs and Armco?
That's an excellent question. To me, it's a sense of you need to relax, and if you start to tense, that's when you're going to have problems. It's almost like if you tense, you're going to hit. I don't know if that makes sense. You start looking at the curbs, and where you look, that's where you're gonna touch. And this race, I felt much more relaxed and not much tension this time.
Flow to the back half of the lap as well. You find yourself sort of just in the zone, trying to go with that rather than fight the car, fight your reflexes and instincts.
So I have a pretty good motion system, D-Box, and so I can really feel the curbs, and I have it turned up pretty high. So as soon as I make any slight contact, I can feel it. And so I was just using that to just kind of make sure that I was close to the edge of the track, but not up on the curb.
Well, congratulations on second place, and anytime you finish a race at the Nordschleife, I think you can pat yourself on the back with that achievement as well.
I'm laughing because that's exactly how I feel, right? If you can finish here at any place and not crash, you're doing well.
And you take some good points, some good team points, all that goodness away from this round as well. And I hope you enjoy the remainder of the season. We'll see you at Alton Park.
Alrighty, David. Good talking to you. Thanks for putting this on YouTube. I'm going to give it to some neighborhood kids that have been asking about my iRacing setup.
Beautiful. I hope they enjoy as well.
Cheers.
Wasn't that a great story?
I love this series so much, David. I think I say this every time I come on, but I love this series, and it shows. I think the drivers tonight have been exceptional. I think we've seen some really good racing around the hardest track in the world, and I can't wait till when we come back, and maybe I'm here, maybe I'm not, for the Alton Park end of the season. I certainly want to be here, but yeah, fantastic drive by all drivers here today, and yeah.
Always great to hear from them. What a great community. That's the heart of 60 Plus Racing Adventures. Is it's a group of racers in a category that might be often a little overlooked, but they put on such a great show. They love racing against each other. They race respectfully, and they race every week. They've got a couple more rounds to go. They're at the Hockenheim Ring, then Fuji, Long Beach, Sebring, Gateway Oval, and you'll catch the season finale from Alton Park live here on RaceSpotTV. So mark that one in your calendar if you're any of the neighborhood kids in Donald Fitterer's neighborhood in New York, if I'm to believe his iRacing club. That's all from the Nordschleife. From myself, David Haynes, Will Chadwick, Dane Baird producing. We'll see you again on RaceSpotTV for 60 Plus Racing Adventures at Alton Park.